Valvoline.
Hello and welcome to Eurosport for coverage of the 5th round of the PPG IndyCar World Series. It's the Miller Genuine Draft 200 from the Milwaukee Mile. There we are looking at our pole position man, Raul Boesel, the Brazilian who makes up the first part of a Brazilian front row with Emerson Fittipaldi sitting alongside him. Boesel driving the Duracell Mobile One Sardia Lola 93. A great pole position this for Raul Boesel. In fact, his first ever pole position in IndyCar racing as he moves away on the first of the parade laps. An average speed of 165.752 miles an hour round this very tight 1 mile oval. Not very steep banking, as you can begin to see as the cars move away on their first of their parade laps. This is not as steeply banked as the course at Phoenix, which we saw a few weeks ago. There we can see some figures about the race. Expected fuel stop between laps 62 and laps 67. Partly sunny, so some good conditions for the Indy cars. Raul Boesel then leading away with Emerson Fittipaldi alongside him on the front row, the winner from the Indianapolis 500 just last weekend. The teams have little time in which to recover from the month of May spent at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway before they're off to Milwaukee, which is 3 or 4 hours drive north of Chicago, and then they take part in one of the oldest running IndyCar races on the calendar. First national championship race here at Milwaukee was run way back in 1933, and in fact the first car race was run here in 1903. So the 90th year of competition. Boesel and Fittipaldi make up the front row. It's a non-American second row as well, with both Scott Goodyear and Paul Tracy, the two young Canadians, making up the second row of the grid. Good performance from Scott Goodyear. Also Paul Tracy, the man who was leading at Phoenix before he crashed so spectacularly, went on of course to win at Long Beach to take his debut win in the IndyCar series. On the third row we've got Mario Andretti, who took the win on that 1 mile oval at Phoenix, and alongside him Scott Brayton, who finished 6th at Indianapolis last weekend, who finished 3rd here last year at Milwaukee. Where's Nigel Mansell? Well, Mansell is back in 7th place on the grid. Mansell struggling a little bit to get used to the change in track conditions that affected the circuit in qualifying yesterday. Found it very different when they actually went out to qualify from the way it had been. Here we see, in fact, from Mansell's car as they continue on their parade laps. Mansell struggling a little bit to get his car dialed in for the conditions, and therefore qualifying in 7th place. Alongside him is the 24-year-old Californian Robbie Gordon in the Copenhagen Racing AJ Foyt Lola. So there could be some fireworks between those two on the 4th row of the grid. On the 5th row, the reigning champion, Bobby Rahal, and he is in a new car to him now because he's out in a Lola. The Miller Genuine Draft Special is a Lola this time for the first time. He was racing the Rahal Hogan, his own car of course, but that has proved to be fairly uncompetitive. It is being raced in this race by Mike Groff, who has joined in the team for this particular event and should be competing in further races. Mike Groff has qualified in 16th on the grid. Stefan Johansson is behind Roberto Guerrero, who's alongside Bobby Rahal. So the Colombian driver having a few problems in his qualifying session. Then it's Stefan Johansson in 11th, but he was 3rd fastest in the warm-up, interestingly enough, as the car's just beginning still to build some heat into the tyres on these initial parade laps. So Johansson, alongside him is Adrian Fernandez, the young Mexican, having only his 2nd IndyCar start. A good performance for the man who's a 3rd driver for the Gallus International team, driving alongside Al Unser Jr. and Danny Sullivan. Danny Sullivan and Unser actually qualifying alongside each other way back on row 9, so 17th and 18th fastest. They've been outshone so far by their young team rookie Adrian Fernandez. On the 7th row of the grid it's Jimmy Vasser and Teo Fabi, and then Olivier Gruillard, Mike Groff, who we mentioned, Sullivan and Unser, then Dave Kudrave, Buddy Lazier, Willie T. Ribbs, Ari Lyondike, Ross Bentley and Hiro Matsushita, and Robbie Buell is the final car on the grid. And here we go with the cars coming round to take the green flag, and it's Raul Boesel who takes, but no, the yellows are out. The yellows are out. The starter obviously not happy with the way that that start was taken, and maybe felt that they were out of position, so the yellows were shown instead of the expected green flag. So we see the field regroup and come round nice and slowly once again. Boesel then leading on that front row of the grid, an all Brazilian front row. Boesel and Fittipaldi just in behind them, the two Canadians, Goodyear and Tracy. Now then, are we going to get a better start? The grid looks as though it's in formation. They begin to accelerate up the back stretch towards turn 3, and around turn 3 they come into turn 3 now. It's almost one corner, turn 3 and turn 4. Here they come then, really beginning to step on it now as Bazell again tries to get away from that pole position, and Bazell, who takes the green flag, Fittipaldi on the outside, the two Canadians battling away for third and fourth. Tracy going around the outside of Goodyear though, and may well have taken third place. So here's Bazell, look at that, it's stretching out already. Fittipaldi in second place. Tracy has taken third from Goodyear, but Goodyear's coming back at him. Mario Andretti there, just right in behind them as well, and that's Robbie Gordon coming around the outside of Andretti as Goodyear goes around the outside of Tracy. So all change around on this opening lap. They complete one lap. Raoul Bazell still out in front from Emerson Fittipaldi in second place, with Goodyear now up into third position. Raoul Bazell though really looks in good form in the Dick Simon run Lola with the Cosworth engine. His lap speed in qualifying was really totally out of reach of anybody else. 165 miles an hour he averaged, and the next best was 161. So Raoul Bazell certainly looking to try and make up for his disappointment at Indianapolis last weekend. Fittipaldi there, the winner of course of the Indy 500, and he's holding on to second place in the Marlboro Penske, looking comfortable in second place at the moment, not having too much problem there as they come round. And Bazell certainly stretching out an early lead. It's a 200 lap race, it's a 1 mile oval, 200 mile race, and so plenty of time to go. There is Scott Goodyear in the Mackenzie Special, the Derek Walker Motorsports car, the Lola, also with a Ford Cosworth engine. He's holding on to third place at the moment, and Goodyear, who didn't have such a good Indy 500 but qualifying third here, was actually fastest in this morning's warm-up. So Goodyear's obviously got a very good race set up. Just in behind him, there's Robbie Gordon. So Gordon has come up extremely well from 8th on the grid as we see the battle between Andretti and Tracy. Now Tracy not going as well as we might have expected. Tracy, of course, who dominated so well in the early laps in the Phoenix 1 mile oval race before spectacularly going out of the race when in a healthy lead. Well, he's behind Mario Andretti there and pushing quite hard, but so far not showing that same sort of pace. In behind them, there is Nigel Mansell, the second of the Kmart Texaco Javelin Lolas. Nigel Mansell following Paul Tracy. There we see from on board with Nigel Mansell, just in behind Paul Tracy. You can see Mario Andretti a little bit further ahead as they come into turn 3. A fairly bumpy circuit, this one. Mansell getting used to a completely different kind of oval racing to that which he got used to last weekend. It was a superb performance from Mansell to finish third in his debut oval race, particularly at a site such as Indianapolis. Here at Milwaukee, it's a different type of racing. There's a lot more to think about in terms of getting through the traffic on this 1 mile oval. There goes Tracy having a look up the inside of Andretti, and Paul Tracy taking that position away from Mario Andretti. Oh, and a car off, that's Johansson, Stefan Johansson in the wall, the rear wing there we can see off the back of the car and lying up against the wall. Johansson getting out of the car, and so the first yellow of the day comes out, the first yellow as we've got into the race. So Stefan Johansson, the former McLaren and Ferrari Formula One driver in his second year now of IndyCar racing, out of the race as we look at the top 6 after 8 laps. Bazell followed by Fittipaldi, Goodyear and Gordon, then Andretti and Mansell. Scott Brayton, Steffi Johansson of course now out of it, Bobby Rahal in 10th, Roberto Guerrero in 11th, and Adrian Fernandez in only his first race here at Milwaukee in 12th place. Fernandez, who performed so well in the Indy Lights series last year, but now competing in the IndyCar team. So with the cars on their first yellow flag period, it's Bazell leading the way. Johansson's car needs to be cleared away, and some work to do there obviously. So the yellow flag period is going to be lasting for a little while, I should think, so the cars will have some time to settle back into position. We'll be rejoining this Milwaukee 200 in just a few minutes. Stay with us here on Eurosport. Welcome back to coverage of the 5th round of the PPG IndyCar World Series here at Milwaukee, and the situation now, we've cleared from that yellow flag. We're absolutely live with our coverage now. The situation, Bazell still out in front, and he is holding on to the lead for the moment, and managing to put some good laps together. Mansell now we're looking from with his Lola Ford, and he is running at the moment, we think, in 4th or 5th place as he tries to go past Andretti. He's trying to get past Andretti for position, but hasn't managed to find a place there because Andretti is certainly shutting the door, and he wasn't able to get through. So here he goes, having another go, looking up the inside into turn 3, but Andretti shutting the door firmly in his face, and he's unable to get through as yet. So Mansell still following through, and there we can see just dropping back a little bit from Andretti's car. So this is important for Mansell. He's keen to try and get past his teammate, but of course Mario Andretti, highly experienced at racing on these 1 mile ovals. Andretti's actually won here at Milwaukee 4 times in his illustrious career. He won twice in 1966, won in 1967 as well, and then won in 1985. That's his most recent win. So Andretti knows this place extremely well. Mansell learning it all the time and trying to find a way of getting past his experienced teammate. Still Mansell not able to find a way through, of course affected by the turbulence created by the loss of downforce from Andretti's car. Here we go, he's got a little bit of a slipstream now, he's trying to get into turn 1, but no, he's just not quite able to get alongside enough into turn 1. Andretti running low. There we can see the top 3 with Bazell, Fittipaldi, Goodyear, then Gordon, Tracy and Andretti, and Mansell trying to get into that top 6. He's followed by Scott Brayton and Roberto Guerrero. So this is the battle for 6th as Mansell going around the outside now as they come out of turn 4, and yes, that was a beautiful manoeuvre from Nigel Mansell, who takes 6th position from Mario Andretti, and that really was beautifully done right round the outside at turn 4. It's not easy here at Milwaukee, very bumpy in places, and as I say, not much banking to help the cars around the corners. Their lap speed's much less than at Phoenix, where they were doing over 170 miles an hour. Here it's around 160 mile an hour average, and Mansell having to work hard to get used to this new kind of racing. So Mansell now up into 6th place. We're looking from Mansell's car back towards his teammate Mario Andretti, and you can see just how well Mansell's going. Now this is the battle for the lead with Bazell in front of Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi there closing up now though in the number 4 car. Bazell in the number 9 Duracell sponsored machine. Bazell really is putting in a strong performance out in front at the moment. Of course he felt very aggrieved at Indianapolis last week that he'd been given 2 stop and go penalties, but look at this, he's really under pressure from Emerson Fittipaldi. Bazell, we're looking at Bazell coming past Ari Lyondike's car. From the back of Ari Lyondike's car, Fittipaldi's going the other side of Lyondike's car. Fittipaldi on the inside, Bazell on the outside, and it looks as though this could be a change for the lead, but no, Bazell holds the outside. Well, that really was incredible. They're really getting in amongst the traffic now, and Bazell was able to just sneak through there, and so Bazell holds the lead from Fittipaldi, who really lost out amongst the cars that were lapping there. They were lapping. Bazell managed to sneak through, and Scott Goodyear there now tucked in behind him. So Scott Goodyear not able to do anything against Bazell at the moment, but Goodyear is up there as well, so it's all changed around with Bazell now, Goodyear, and then Fittipaldi in 3rd place, with Robbie Gordon going extremely well in 4th position at the moment. Robbie Gordon, this is only his first ever race in an Indy car at Milwaukee. He's in 4th place there. You can see him just at the tail of the group in the black car, and Gordon, who drives for AJ Foyt, another 4-time winner here, and he really is putting in an excellent performance. Didn't qualify terribly brilliantly, qualified 8th. So Scott Goodyear there in 2nd place. He managed to take that 2nd place in all the dramas of Fittipaldi and Bazell trying to get past that slower traffic. Goodyear taking 2nd, a real opportunist move. So he's now into 2nd. Fittipaldi down to 3rd. There is Robbie Gordon in the Copenhagen sponsored, the black machine, the AJ Foyt run car. He's in 4th, and just look how close these top 4 cars are together. This is true IndyCar racing. These guys all very close together. There's nothing in it between them really, as Bazell continues to lead from Scott Goodyear. 2nd place, Fittipaldi closing in 3rd, and look at this, the battle for the top 3 places. Bazell still has Goodyear applying pressure with Fittipaldi tucked right in behind them. Of course, the traffic is playing a fairly major part in this. They've really got to watch how they get through the slower cars. It's like threading a needle around this 1 mile circuit. And still Raul Boesel holding out in front. Finished fourth last weekend at Indianapolis as Fittipaldi has a look down the inside at Goodyear, but Goodyear shuts the door firmly and Fittipaldi has to stay in at the third position. Boesel then still out in front, ahead of Goodyear in second place, then Fittipaldi in third, Robbie Gordon in fourth place, Mansell trying to make up some ground, sixth place at the moment, but catching fifth place man. There's Boesel, the gap is 0.3 of a second. We can see what the gap is. It's very little gap indeed, with Fittipaldi breathing down the young Canadian's neck as well. The Mackenzie, the blue and silver car of Goodyear, now trying to get past Boesel, trying to take that lead. They're coming up on some slower cars again. And once again, Goodyear has a little look down the inside, but Boesel shutting the door. And so Boesel still holds on to that lead. Emerson Fittipaldi just looking for another opportunity to try and get back at Goodyear. Now there is Paul Tracy. Tracy taking Gordon, and Gordon now is demoted to fifth place. So Paul Tracy suddenly arrived out of nowhere. We hadn't seen Tracy on the tail of that group, but we now have the two Penske's running third and fourth. And the Penske team really has had a good season so far. 2 wins for them. They've taken 1 win apiece. Of course, Tracy winning at Long Beach, Fittipaldi winning at Indianapolis. And so far this season, it's been a battle between the Penske's and the Newman Haas Lolas. Look at this battle, though, between the Dick Simon run car of Boesel and the Derek Walker Motorsports car of Scott Goodyear. Neither of these drivers has won a race this season. Raul Boesel has never won an IndyCar race. Goodyear won at Michigan last year and really came good last year, finished second at Indianapolis behind Alonso Jr. and in that closest ever finished, a remarkable race. But here comes Fittipaldi again, and oh dear, just squeezed out there by Goodyear. So these three really are at it, hammer and tongs, as they continue to lap some of the slower cars. It's still Boesel driving beautifully out in front at the moment. A forceful, aggressive drive this by Raul Boesel, who really looks determined to make up for his disappointment at the Indy 500. That pole position was a remarkable performance. Emerson Fittipaldi commenting after qualifying that Boesel wasn't driving, he was flying, and that Emo needed a pilot's license to keep up with him. That was what Fittipaldi felt about it. But it's Goodyear now, and Boesel's got held up, and it is a change for the lead, because Scott Goodyear takes the lead as Teo Fabi there in the Pennzoil car just getting in the way of Raul Boesel. So Goodyear it is who takes the lead, and Raul Boesel demoted to second place, and Fittipaldi now in third position still, with Tracy breathing down his neck. Robbie Gordon in fifth place, Nigel Mansell in sixth position. We haven't seen much of Mansell now because of this battle in the top 3-4 places, and Paul Tracy certainly closing up to his team leader Emerson Fittipaldi. The two Penske's certainly looking very, very strong at the moment. They look quite happy to be sitting there at the moment, just keeping an eye on the two leaders battling away. Scott Goodyear now leading ahead of Raul Boesel. Now then, we've still got a little way to go before the first round of pit stops. The pit stops, 2 pit stops will be planned, and if they're, as we see, lap 47 now, we're up to lap 47. Goodyear leading out of Boesel, Fittipaldi, Tracy, Gordon, and then Mansell in 6th position. So we're about quarter of the distance as we watch this race. So with about quarter of the race now completed, we still see Goodyear leading, but Tracy now moving up. In Tracy, in fact, taking the lead. Tracy just ahead now of Fittipaldi. So Tracy really is making up a good ground here. In fact, been a bit of a change around there with just Tracy getting ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, let's just see, is Boesel still up in front of them? Yeah, in fact, Goodyear still out in front, so Boesel still in second place. Then Tracy now third, Emo in fourth position. A little bit of a change around. I thought that Goodyear was dropping back, but it was one of the back markers. So it is Goodyear still out in front. We're watching the Penske cars at the moment to see whether these two Penske machines can perform as well as they have been throughout the course of the season so far. There goes Paul Tracy, the winner at Long Beach. That was his first ever win, of course. He had led so well at Phoenix and really had proved to be so quick on that other 1 mile oval that they've competed on already. This one is slightly different, as I mentioned, not as high banking, not as steep a banking, so the average speed's that much less, but nevertheless Paul Tracy is turning into a master of these shorter 1 mile ovals, and he really does have to be a threat for the overall race win here this afternoon at the Wisconsin State Fair Park, the site for the Miller Genuine Draft 200, a race with a great heritage. Michael Andretti has won this event 4 times. He won it last year, so of course that's the drive that Nigel Mansell has taken over, with Michael Andretti going to Formula One now, and he has been very successful. There is our leader, Scott Goodyear. A good performance this from the Canadian. He really is putting a strong performance together. 1.4 seconds ahead now of Raoul Boesel. Paul Tracy there in 3rd, Fittipaldi now in 4th, Robbie Gordon 5th, and then Nigel Mansell. Mansell, as we can see, less than 2 seconds behind Robbie Gordon. These two qualified together, in fact, on the 4th row of the grid. And now Mansell trying to catch up to the 24-year-old Californian. 53 laps completed out of the 200 as Goodyear coming up to lap Harry Lyondike, the pole sitter at Indianapolis, who finished 2nd, but really hasn't been going too well here at Milwaukee so far, struggling away and really hasn't set the pace as we might have expected. Here we have a little replay of Tracy's pass of Fittipaldi, and indeed, yeah, Fittipaldi just getting held up. That was Matsushita's car there, which confused me a little bit. The blue car, a little bit like Scott Goodyear's car, but that's Hiro Matsushita, who they were lapping at the time. Fittipaldi got a little bit held up. That gave Paul Tracy the opportunity to get past, and so Paul Tracy then moved up into 3rd position. That's Dave Kudrave going up the inside of Teo Fabi. Kudrave just putting a strong performance together here, as we see Raoul Boesel now coming under pressure for 2nd place from Paul Tracy. Here comes Tracy then trying to take 2nd place, coming down the inside of Raoul Boesel, and Boesel just about holding on to that 2nd place at the moment. Oh dear, that was close stuff though, with Paul Tracy. Really had got his nose in there, but Boesel was very determined to hold that place. But here he goes, and look at the speed. Once again, Paul Tracy has the setup they've got on these Penske's, really looking very, very strong in the race once again, and Paul Tracy takes 2nd place now. So we have a Canadian 1-2 with Scott Goodyear leading the way ahead of Paul Tracy in 2nd place. 3rd place to Raoul Boesel, and 4th place now Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is catching up to Raoul Boesel as well. Now then, are we going to see another change around? Boesel just dropping away slightly. Now, is this because they are wondering about fuel? Milwaukee is certainly a track where they have to think about fuel consumption, and they have to think about how much fuel they're using. It has been known for a car to run dry. There goes Gordon though, Robbie Gordon moving past Emerson Fittipaldi. So Fittipaldi just dropping back, and Robbie Gordon moving up a place, and there's Nigel Mansell just tucked in behind. So those two have really caught up close. Mansell now has Emerson Fittipaldi just in front of him, and all of a sudden we have more change around. This race really staying alive as Mansell closing up. Now then, what else have we got? We've got Boesel coming under pressure from Gordon, with Fittipaldi under pressure from Mansell. And Mansell taking that higher line. Perhaps the Lola, the Kmart Texaco Havoline Lola, just running a little bit better on the higher line around turn 1 and 2. There goes Boesel, and Gordon Mansell now down the inside of Fittipaldi. So he takes that position away. We've got Scott Goodyear out in front, Tracy in 2nd, Boesel in 3rd, Gordon in 4th. Mansell now up in 5th, and Fittipaldi in 6th. So that's the story, and at the moment Mansell looking to be going quite well. He's got himself past Fittipaldi. He now still wants to go chasing after Robbie Gordon. So as I was saying, certainly going to be tough on fuel this event. Some teams are planning, in fact, 3 stops. It does depend very much on the fuel situation as regards the yellow flags. Of course, the more yellow flag periods they run, the less fuel they run. So the more yellow flags that situations that do arise, the less fuel they'll have to run, and they'll be likely to be able to get away with just the 2 fuel stops. So they haven't started stopping yet. They will do within around 5 laps. We're beginning to see some fuel stops coming up pretty soon, as we see Raoul Boesel in 3rd place, coming under pressure from Robbie Gordon in the black car. Raoul Boesel in 3rd. There is the gap between 3rd and 4th at the moment. Boesel just 0.4 of a second ahead of Robbie Gordon. Gordon there in the AJ Foyt run car. Gordon really taking a little bit of time to get used to this Milwaukee oval. AJ Foyt actually took him down to take a look at the other group. They were split into 2 groups in their untimed qualifying, and AJ Foyt led him down to turns 1 and 2 to have a look at it, see what the quick guys were doing. And Robbie Gordon certainly seems to have learned from that, and he really is going very well now in 4th place there behind Raoul Boesel. Now we're looking from behind Bobby Rahal's car. Now Bobby Rahal, the reigning IndyCar champion, of course, he finished 2nd here last year to Michael Andretti, but he's a lap down, and he's about to be lapped by Scott Goodyear, our race leader. There we are, looking at Scott Goodyear from behind Bobby Rahal's car. This the first drive for Bobby Rahal in his Lola. Been running the Rahal Hogan, his own car, which was a modification of the True Sports machine raced by Scott Pruitt last year. Well, it hasn't proven to be too quick. Of course, Bobby Rahal didn't even qualify for the Indy 500. And we have our first pit stop now. Paul Tracy coming into the pits. So this is the first of the round of pit stops. Refueling, of course, part of the pit stops in IndyCar racing. So not only do they have to change tyres, they'll also be taking on 40 gallons of methanol. They run on methanol, these IndyCars, and Tracy, a good stop. Only 6 men allowed in the pit lane, so of course a little bit of a difference to Formula 1 as we see Scott Goodyear there trying to get past some of the slower traffic. Just, I think he might be coming in. He slowed down a little bit there, did he? Are we going to be seeing Scott Goodyear come into the pits at this lap? No, he didn't. So just seemed to back off a little bit, maybe just getting a bit tied up in the traffic. He's now managing to find his way past. That's Olivier Gruillard, in fact, the Frenchman, the ex-Formula 1 driver, who is now in his first IndyCar race, and in fact qualified very well. He qualified up in 15th place on the grid. Not a bad performance at all for the man in his debut IndyCar race. Olivier Gruillard then for 3 years of experience in Formula 1, now taking his turn in IndyCar racing. But we're watching our leader, Scott Goodyear, still out in front. Paul Tracy, the only man we've seen to have made a stop so far. There is Goodyear, leader by 10.7 seconds at the moment. And there is Boesel into the pits as well, who was in 3rd place, of course. Moved up to 2nd with Tracy's stop. Boesel into the pits for his fuel, his tyres, and moves away. No problems for Raoul Boesel. So Raoul had two stop and go penalties last weekend at the Indy 500 in the course of making pit stops. He made a pit stop when the yellow flag came out and was told he should have driven right through and come out the other side without stopping. So he had to make a stop and go penalty. He also was penalised for actually overtaking out of the pit road. So the result, the performance at the moment with the pit stops, Goodyear still leading this one, and he's still got to make his pit stop, so that will change the order around. So come back and join us here on Eurosport in just a few moments after the break. You rejoin us here on Eurosport as Nigel Mansell makes his pit stop. This is the first round of pit stops. Mansell, one of the later ones to come into the pits as he refuels, takes on 4 new tyres and pulls out of the pit lane. Here comes Robbie Gordon. So this means that the top 6 have all come into the pits. Fittipaldi, Goodyear have both been in. Fittipaldi made a little change to his front wing adjustment. Goodyear made no change at all, so he's obviously very happy with the performance of his car. Was leading before the first round of pit stops here. Gordon is back in. He has a successful stop, does he? Yes, he's back out in good time, and so Robbie Gordon rejoins the circuit. He was in 4th place before the stops. Let's see whether he comes out as he exits after that first stop. So we're thinking we're going to have to be having 2 more stops. If there are no yellow flag periods, then 2 more stops will we be seeing before the end of this race, and we could well get into fuel consumption worries if there are no other yellow flag periods. As I was saying, Back in 1990, Michael Andretti lost the lead here at Milwaukee with just 2 laps to go. He'd been leading all the way, and he just lost out right at the end to Alonso Jr. Mike Groff just coming into the pits there, and Mike Groff having his first race of the year. He's actually in the Rahal Hogan, which Bobby Rahal has passed on to him. He's in that Rahal Hogan team, as we see Scott Goodyear still in front after that first round of pit stops. So Goodyear still retaining the lead. He's just coming up behind Jimmy Vasser, the man who finished 3rd at Phoenix in the Codalux sponsored car. Jimmy Vasser, 27 years old, has had good season so far in his first full season. But it's Goodyear who is currently setting the pace, and this a strong performance from him. Goodyear's had a little bit of bad luck so far this year. He was in the lead battle at Long Beach, and there we can see Paul Tracy is in fact very close behind him. So Paul Tracy in 2nd place. Goodyear may be getting a little bit held up here behind Jimmy Vasser. Might give Paul Tracy the opportunity to try and take the lead. Here we go then, a bit of traffic. There's Danny Sullivan on the inside in the Molson car. There goes Goodyear. Does he? Oh no, Vasser is just perhaps holding him up a little bit as they come out of turn 4, and Paul Tracy is a little bit closer. Here they come down the start finish straight. Tracy moves down the inside. Scott Goodyear tries to stay around the outside and holds him off this time, and still Tracy can take a very tight line there. He really almost has it on the grass through turn 2 as they come onto the back chute. It's still Goodyear, but Tracy dives down the inside again. Now, has he got enough speed this time to hold off Goodyear? Goodyear is going to be held up behind Jimmy Vasser, and it is Tracy who takes the lead. And Paul Tracy in front now, taking the lead from Scott Goodyear. So Tracy, who led at Phoenix, he won at Long Beach. He crashed out of Indy 500 when he was battling with Scott Brayton, and that was one of the few shunts, in fact, last weekend at Indy. But it's Paul Tracy who now has taken that lead from Scott Goodyear, and the Penske once again looks to be running beautifully well. They really do seem to be able to get a good race setup on this Penske. Here we have another look at it. Now you can see Goodyear just trying to hold a tight line there. That was out of turn 2 and along the back stretch. Now here Paul Tracy had a good slipstream. He got down the inside, not enough to get in front, but here Goodyear couldn't really get on the power as much as he wanted, couldn't get back on the throttle because of Vasser being in front of him, and he just had to tuck in behind Tracy. Tracy judged it to perfection, took the lead beautifully, and so it's Tracy now from Ontario in Canada who leads the race in his Marlboro Penske. Now then, here's the battle a little further back with Mansell now ahead of Bazell after their round of pit stops. So Mansell now up into 3rd place. Mansell into 3rd. That was the position, of course, he finished at Indianapolis, and this is yet another strong performance from Nigel Mansell in his first race on a short oval. Raoul Bazell just in behind him, but Mansell in quick form. It looks like they've got a good setup on the Newman-Haas car as well. Of course, this season has been a battle between Newman-Haas and Penske so far, and Mansell putting in a strong performance in 3rd place. Now, is he going to be able to close that gap up? 14.2 seconds down on our leader, Paul Tracy. Scott Goodyear in 2nd, Bazell in 4th, then Fittipaldi in 5th, and Gordon in 6th. So fairly close, but a good lead there for Paul Tracy. We've got Goodyear only just in behind him. There is a bit of a gap there, 14 seconds behind, but still not a lap. Of course, the important thing that Tracy will now be trying to do is to try and get a lap on his nearest competitors. If he can get a lap ahead of Nigel Mansell, then even if a yellow flag comes out, of course, he will stay a lap ahead, and that will be Paul Tracy's aim. Now here we are on Arie Luyendyk's car, the pole sitter from the Indy 500. Had a good race. Of course, he was one of the guys who shot past Nigel Mansell on the restarts. Nigel Mansell leading with around 16 laps to go at the Indy 500. Arie Luyendyk and Emerson Fittipaldi were the two to get past him, and there is Emerson Fittipaldi also taking that 4th position away from Raoul Bazell. So another change as Raoul Bazell drops down to 5th behind Emerson Fittipaldi, and the 2nd Penske moves up a place. He now goes chasing after Nigel Mansell, and it really is all change in the top 6. Difficult to keep track of the places as they change around, but there is Emerson Fittipaldi in 4th position in the chase for Nigel Mansell. Fittipaldi, of course, who closed the gap down to Nigel Mansell in the very exciting latter stages of the Indy 500. And it was Fittipaldi's experience on the restarts on the green flag that really allowed him to take the win away from Nigel Mansell. Mansell himself admitting that he really just got a little bit left behind on the green flag, and that could have cost him the win. But Fittipaldi was in superb form all race long in the Indy 500 and had looked very threatening from a very early stage, and was certainly catching up to Mansell before those final decisive yellows came out. So Fittipaldi, could this be another good year for him? Fittipaldi won the Indy 500 back in 1989, went on to win the IndyCar Championship. Now, with that sort of a performance, is he going to be able to repeat that sort of performance in 1993? He certainly had some good results. He was second at Surfers Paradise to Nigel Mansell, and that win at Indianapolis last weekend puts him third in the championship, as we see Dave Kudrave in trouble. Now, this could be our first, or second rather, yellow of the race, unless he gets back into the pits before he can get back. I think the yellow flag has in fact come out. Dave Kudrave there, yep, indeed, he's not back into the pits, so he's pulled off. Dave Kudrave is out of the race. The yellow flags are out. Now, this of course could change the pit strategy. Kudrave is Californian, winner in Formula Super V in 1987 was Dave Kudrave, and this is his debut season in Indy cars, so not a good first race for him at Milwaukee. Now, here's looking from Nigel Mansell's car on the second yellow period. We can see one of the wreckers on the inside just going to collect Dave Kudrave's car. That's the Andrea Moda Ajip Tamuin Lola. It's a Lola 92, that car, run by the Euro Motorsports racing team. Had two finishes. He was 22nd at Phoenix and 22nd at Long Beach. Didn't manage to qualify at Indianapolis last week, or in qualifying a few weeks before that, but Kudrave out of this race, unfortunately. So the yellow flag period then, and this is going to be a little breather for everybody. The front group of cars, of course, will all close up together. And as we noticed, Tracy and Goodyear had around a 14-second lead over Mansell before this yellow flag came out. That, of course, will now concertina. And Tracy, Goodyear, Mansell, they'll all be together with Fittipaldi just in behind, Bazell just in behind that, of course. So this could be very exciting when we get a restart situation underway. And will Tracy be able to continue his strong performance so far? The Penske car certainly is looking strong. There is Mansell then. He is in third position.
Sport Live.
And welcome back to coverage of the Milwaukee race, and that's not Nigel Mansell, that is Mario Andretti in the pits. That's his second stop in the pit lane within a minute, and obviously some severe problems with that car. So Mario Andretti is desperately hoping that they can sort the problem out. I don't know what the problem is, but Andretti, they are under yellow flag, so of course he's not losing as much ground as he would be if they were actually racing. The yellow flag period is still on at the moment, and so there we see the order with Tracy still out in front at the moment. Mario is still listed as 6th, but of course he's now losing out a lot there, and so it looks as though he's going to be well out of the top 6 now. Looking down the running order there, we can see some of the lower running cars. Willie T. Ribbs still there, Robbie Buell, who had a good result at Long Beach, of course. Dave Kudrave is now out, as we know. Buddy Lazier, Danny Sullivan, and Stefan Johansson, the other man who crashed out of the race on lap 8. So still frantic work going on in the Newman Haas pit, and it's difficult to see. They're working over the top of the gearbox on the rear suspension, is it, or is it actually on the gearbox itself? There we see Mario sitting quietly, 53-year-old Mario Andretti. Phoenix win was his 52nd IndyCar win, of course. Made it his 100th major career win, a truly remarkable record for a driver, the 1978 World Formula One champion with Lotus as well. But he's been in this situation a few times in his illustrious career, but it's never easy. He's having to sit there and hope that they can sort the problem out, whatever it is. And it sounds to me as though the yellow flag has been withdrawn. Indeed it has. The green flag has been waved. And we have the race back on. There is our leader, Paul Tracy, still up in front at the moment. So Paul Tracy looking to try and take this second win of the 1993 season, and his second win of his career, of course, in IndyCar racing. He made his debut back in 1991 at Long Beach. In fact, that was the first race in the IndyCar series. That was following a wonderful year winning the Indy Lights Championship in 1990. And his performances certainly attracted the attention of Roger Penske, who signed him up as a test driver. And there is Scott Goodyear, our second place man. Goodyear still in second place, Mansell still in third place. Goodyear trying to get past Roberto Guerrero at the moment. Guerrero has had a bit of a tough time here in qualifying. He had fuel pickup problems in qualifying, and that certainly lost him some speed, and he certainly seems to be a little bit down on pace in this race as well. Guerrero driving the Budweiser sponsored car, and we've now reached half distance, so 100 laps completed. Half distance, still 100 laps, 100 miles to go, with Paul Tracy still out in front. Second place is Scott Goodyear. Nigel Mansell is in third place. Then it's Fittipaldi, then it's Raul Boesel. Robbie Gordon there in the number 14 car. He's well up as well. Gordon trying to make up some ground amongst the lapped cars. There's Boesel and there is Robbie Gordon. So battle for fifth place is on. Gordon in sixth place at the moment. Boesel in fifth. And Gordon trying to make up that little bit of ground in the AJ Foyt loader. There he is, sixth behind leader, 14 seconds. He's had 2 pit stops so far. Fastest lap 1:49. So just under the 150 mile an hour mark. The pole time was 165 mile an hour lap by Raul Boesel. Boesel was pretty happy with the race setup, but at the moment the Dick Simon loader just being outpaced a little bit by there Emerson Fittipaldi, who's holding on to fourth position in car number 4, the 1989 IndyCar champion, trying to repeat that IndyCar championship win this season. Now Boesel is definitely closing up again this time in the number 9 car. Boesel, of course, who was the 1987 sports car champion for Jaguar. He's raced for Jaguar in the States as well in the IMSA series in 1991. He returned to IndyCar racing last year with the Dick Simon team, with whom he's currently racing. So here is Boesel closing up on Fittipaldi. Boesel has never won an IndyCar race. Here he comes, trying to get past Fittipaldi for that fourth position, but doesn't quite manage it on that occasion. Lining Fittipaldi up, trying to get the draft as they come along the back chute and towards turn 3. Boesel down the inside, but Fittipaldi has that covered. And Boesel losing a bit of ground. He's got to watch his mirrors now, because Robbie Gordon is closing up on that little battle in 6th position. So we're now getting into a 3-way tussle for 4th place, with Fittipaldi there at the moment, then Boesel, and then Robbie Gordon in the black car. Gordon, who finished a stunning 3rd in the opening race of the season at Surfers Paradise, the race held in Australia, which Mansell won, of course, his debut race in IndyCar racing, won by Nigel Mansell. But Robbie Gordon was equally impressive in many ways and surprised an awful lot of people with his performance. And there is Gordon in the number 14 car, the number 14 made so famous by AJ Foyt, his team leader. Foyt himself, many-time winner here at Milwaukee. In fact, one of his most famous results here at Milwaukee was not when he won it, but when he turned up with a dirt sprint car in 1965 and actually raced against the mid-engine specials in his front-engined dirt oval race car. Now here we are looking at Danny Sullivan from the onboard camera, looking back at Danny Sullivan, and Sullivan's having a tough time. He's down to 22nd now So really is having a bad day with the Gallus International run Lola. Of course, he was in the Galma last year, and the Galma team switching to Lolas for this season, and teammate to Alonso Jr. So Danny Sullivan certainly not enjoying a particularly good result so far. He was 5th back here in 1991 when he was driving the Miller Genuine Draft Alfa Romeo powered car, and that's Scott Goodyear. Scott Goodyear, the man who was in 2nd place, is pulling off the circuit, and oh dear, Scott Goodyear just seems to have so much bad luck this season. Goodyear in 2nd place, and he's out of the race. Unbelievable. There, his wife Leslie just looking at the monitors, unbelieving. Scott Goodyear, who was battling for the lead at Long Beach, he was running 2nd at Phoenix, and they had gearbox problems. There's just unbelievable luck for Scott Goodyear. 2nd place he was running in, and really had a good chance for the victory. He's just he's sitting there dazed at the moment. He can't believe the bad luck that he's had so far this year, and this really is incredible. Poor old Scott Goodyear. There he is, just slowing down. He didn't hit anything. No drama in terms of accident damage. There he is, just pulling in fact, at the end of the pit lane. That's the very end of the pit exit, pulling onto the grass, trying to get the car into a safe place. And, well, so disappointing for the Mackenzie Special, the Derek Walker run team. And here's Nigel Mansell in the pits. So Mansell taking, this would be a scheduled pit stop under the yellow flag. They're taking advantage of the yellow flag to make another pit stop. That looked a good, clean stop for Mansell, who was in 3rd place before that stop. He moved up into 2nd with the demise of Scott Goodyear. So Mansell was in 2nd before the pit stop. We'll probably see a round of pit stops now, and we will then see if Mansell is able to take the lead away from Paul Tracy. So this race is certainly proving to be highly dramatic. Scott Goodyear's car being taken away, being towed back into the pits probably, as we can see the cars just going past fairly slowly. Now there is our race leader into the pits. Paul Tracy comes into the pits, and now is this a good stop? Just a little bit slow getting away there. Now this could well give Mansell the opportunity to take the lead. Fittipaldi also into the pits. He is now of course up into 3rd place before the stops, and it could well change around with the stop. Purcell has also just come out of the pits, so Purcell, all the leaders now making their stops, and in fact Purcell may have taken a place there, and it looks as though Scott Goodyear's problem was down to a transmission failure. That repeats the transmission failure they had at Phoenix, which also caused his retirement. So obviously a weak point, and Goodyear getting a big round of applause from the crowd as he is towed all the way around the circuit. He's got to do virtually a mile to get back into the pits again, and that really is a tragic pity for the young Canadian, the 33-year-old Canadian, who made his debut in Indy cars in 1987, had his first full season back in 1990, but really was looking good for this year. Did a lot of testing over the winter, running on a reduced budget in previous years. This year they've got a good program together with the Derek Walker team, and he managed to get in a good winter program of testing, which obviously helped the way. There is Nigel Mansell, and Mansell, who was in 2nd before the stops, could well be in the lead when the green flag is waved. Depends on who is lined up where in the queue, as it were. Depends on their pit stops. So could Mansell be taking the lead here at Milwaukee? Only his 2nd ever oval race. He led, of course, at Indianapolis last weekend. Surprised many of the IndyCar veterans who'd been watching IndyCar seasons for so many years. Surprised an awful lot of people with that performance, did Mansell. And he admitted just a mistake really on the restarts cost him the race. He really could have won that event, but now has the chance possibly here of winning his 2nd ever oval race. So as they carry on round on their yellow flag lap. It looks as though Gordon is well up there at the head of the queue on this yellow flag lap. We can see some of the slower cars there. Alonso Jr. is a little further up. Number 11 car, the MyJack car there of Robbie Buell, also in there, still under a yellow flag, so still some way to go. Robbie Gordon there is also well up in this top 6. We'll have to see how things turn out after this green flag comes out. Car's still going slowly at the moment, of course, to allow for Scott Goodyear's car to be taken right back into pit lane. This, of course, will help them in terms of fuel consumption. Another few laps run under the yellow flag. And Robbie Gordon. Now it is Robbie Gordon. In fact, it turns out that after those pit stops, it is Robbie Gordon who leads. So there is our leader, Robbie Gordon, coming round to take the green flag. And Robbie Gordon, the first of the lead cars. But there's Nigel Mansell right in behind him. Tracy managing to go around the outside of Mansell, though. That's Paul Tracy who manages to sneak round, and Tracy takes second place. Gordon in the lead, but Tracy is bearing down on him, and so it's very confused as they try and get out of this group of traffic, and Tracy takes the lead. So Paul Tracy, a phenomenal start on the green flag there. Paul Tracy takes the lead from Robbie Gordon in second place, and they're just going past Ross Bentley there in one of the slower cars, but it's Tracy who takes the lead from Robbie Gordon now in second place. Mansell has now dropped down to fourth, I think. Gazelle may have moved up, but it's definitely Paul Tracy up in front at the moment, with Robbie Gordon there, just zipping through. There is Raul Bazell in the background, so Bazell has just moved ahead of Andretti and ahead of Mansell. That's the key thing, he's ahead of Mansell. Bazell now in third position. There is Tracy going past Alonso Jr., who's not having a good race here again at Milwaukee. Usually does well here. He won back in 1990. He moved up to take the lead from 10th on the grid in 1991 until electrical problems forced him to retire, but he's certainly not looking on for a result or a performance like that here in 1993. Paul Tracy, look how close that car is in behind Alonso Jr.'s car. He moves to the inside, and Paul Tracy it is who manages to get past Alonso Jr., puts Little Al another lap down, and Tracy looking very strong. There's Robbie Gordon, there's Raul Bazell in third place, the yellow car, the yellow and black machine, and there we're looking at Nigel Mansell in fourth, under pressure from Emerson Fittipaldi in fifth place. Fittipaldi in fifth position, putting Mansell under an awful lot of pressure now. Now then, has Mansell's car, is it performing differently to how it was early in the race? He's certainly been going well in the early part of the race, but he commented yesterday after qualifying just how much this track changes. It really does alter all the way through the day. The amount of sunshine, the cloud cover, everything changes the circuit, and it changes the way the car reacts. Sometimes the car will understeer, sometimes it will oversteer, and it really is a difficult job in terms of the driver having to readjust his driving, perhaps changing the anti-roll bar settings within the cockpit. They can adjust their anti-roll bar settings, and they have to do that to allow for the different conditions. Look at Mansell squeezing through there on the inside, and as they go past some more of the slower cars, very tight there, Mansell, but he managed to squeeze through virtually on the grass as they came out of turn 4. He goes on to the back straight out of turn 2 and along very short straight into turn 3 again. Very little time to relax here, of course, at Milwaukee, unlike at Indianapolis, where they have quite a long straight either side to have a little breather, have a little think about it. There's Fittipaldi now challenging for that position. So Fittipaldi wants fourth place back. He's challenging Mansell for it. Mansell holds on to the moment. Fittipaldi tucked in behind him. And Mansell, the winner of his debut IndyCar race at Surfers Paradise on the street circuit there, now in fourth position, as we can see, but he's under immense pressure for that position from Emerson Fittipaldi, who's tucked right in behind him in the Marlboro-sponsored Penske. Here they come along the back straight again, and Mansell just has enough advantage over Emerson Fittipaldi. Both these guys, of course, former Formula One world champions. Mansell, the reigning Formula One world champion Fittipaldi won the championship in 1972 and in 1974 for McLaren. Fittipaldi now twice winner of the Indy 500 as well, one of that select group to have won the Formula One World Championship and the Indy 500, along with Graham Hill. Now then, Mansell still getting a little bit held up at the moment as they try and get past these slower cars. There is Leyendijk at the front of that little group. And Mansell finally, I think, managing to get past. He's now tucked in behind Arie Leyendijk and just squeezing through. Fittipaldi trying to follow him through. Leyendijk still struggling with the setup on his Chip Ganassi run Lola with the Ford Cosworth engine. Disappointing run though for Leyendijk, has to be said. It is rather a shame. That's Adrian Fernandez just tucked in behind in the number 11 car. Good performances from Adrian Fernandez, who raced in Britain back in the late 80s in Formula Ford 1600. Returned to Mexico as we look at the top 6 with Tracy, Leedon, Gordon, Bazell and Mansell. We've completed 130 laps out of the 200, so we're coming up to 2/3 distance now. So still some way to go, 70 laps remaining. Paul Tracy, there he is, our race leader, out in front at the moment, and putting together a very, very strong performance at the moment. Rick Mears, of course, the man who has won twice here in a Penske, run by Roger Penske at Milwaukee. He's in the pit lane, guiding to a certain extent the tactics of this team, helping out as much as possible. And Tracy really has learned an awful lot from Rick Mears, who was the master of the ovals before his retirement at the end of last year. And Tracy really is putting a very strong performance now. Of course, he was doing this before at Phoenix. Is he going to continue this way? We'll return a few minutes to find out. So Tracy still out in front of this race. He's been leading for quite a few laps now, Paul Tracy, looking very comfortable out in front and trying now not to make the mistake that he made at Phoenix when he really just was pushing that little bit too hard and ended up against the wall. And of course that was the precursor to this other of the Penske cars going into the wall, that of Emerson Fittipaldi. So 60 laps remaining, and still some way to go for these guys, as Paul Tracy still leads the race. Raoul Boesel, Robbie Gordon's in second place still, Raoul Boesel in third position. Then it's that battle for fourth place that we were watching a moment ago with Nigel Mansell and Emerson Fittipaldi. There is Mansell once again in fourth position, still under pressure from Emerson Fittipaldi, and still trying hard to hold on to that position. He's trying to get after Raoul Boesel. Boesel's car going that little bit better now, and the pole sitter Raoul Boesel managing to stay ahead of Nigel Mansell at the moment. Of course, Mansell finding it a very different environment, particularly on a 1 mile oval, to the Formula One World Championship, which he dominated last year, of course, with 9 wins in the course of that season in the Williams Renault. 14 pole positions as well. It really was a record-breaking season for Nigel Mansell. Couldn't agree terms, of course, to continue in Formula One. The story well known now, and moved to IndyCar racing and stamping his authority in that opening race. Of course, this sort of racing very different for him, and he must be looking forward to the next 4 races on the calendar, which are all on the road courses, which will, of course, he will feel more familiar with. Back with Paul Tracy again, out in front of this race, man who qualified in 4th position, but really does seem to work on getting a very, very good race setup, and that's the important thing when it comes to the race itself. He was certainly very pleased with the setup they had. After qualifying, there we can see his progress throughout the course of the race. He dropped to 13th in the first round of pit stops, lap 69, and so that really was a little bit of a false position. So he has been leading now for a good few laps. He'll be going for that extra point for most laps led, and we've got 40 laps remaining. Scott Brayton there in the Amway sponsored machine. He finished third here. Little Al Unser Jr. just in behind him, so a little battle there going off position between these two further down the field. Neither of them running in the top six, but Brayton having to work hard to hold off. And we've got somebody off. That's Adrian Fernandez. Fernandez, what a shame, he was putting together. Oh, and that's a Marlboro. That's a Marlboro car. That was a Penske car. Now, was that our leader who is out of the race? There goes another one going past. Arie Luyendyk. Robbie Buell is involved. I still can't identify which Penske that is. Could that be our race leader, Paul Tracy? It is either Paul Tracy or Emerson Fittipaldi who is out of the race. There is Arie Luyendyk, that is Fernandez, and that looks like it's Tracy. It is Paul Tracy, our leader. That is unbelievable. Paul Tracy, who was leading the race, and there's Robbie Gordon in the pits. He must have made a mistake coming in there, but Paul Tracy, who was leading so comfortably. It's an exact or very similar repeat to the performance at Phoenix, but this time it looks as though Paul Tracy may well have been the innocent victim of an accident. Of course, we haven't seen the accident yet. The yellow flag is out, the pace car is out, but Paul Tracy leading it so comfortably. He's now in the wall, and Robbie Gordon will have taken over the lead, but Robbie Gordon, of course, has made a mistake in the pit, so it looks as though Mansell could be leading. Now, here's what happened. Fernandez loses control. We've got one of the yellow cars that looks as though that's Fabi or Vassar going through, or Mike Groff, I think it was, in fact. Now then, are we going to see one of the other cars go off? No, we can't see that. Here, now, from Arie Luyendyk. Now, Arie Luyendyk, we know, is involved in this shunt. Let's have a look. We're looking from Arie Luyendyk. We're going through turn 2, coming out onto the back straight. He gets hit, and Luyendyk gets hit by somebody. Now, was that Tracy that hit him? It may well have been. They both ended up on the inside. Tracy was tucked just on the inside behind Arie Luyendyk's car. Once again, there's Adrian Fernandez machine, and well, that's just unbelievable. This is going to be a long yellow flag period. Look at there, we can see the car of Paul Tracy up against the car of Arie Luyendyk. Luyendyk, who was running well down the order at the time. Tracy, of course, who was leading the race from Robbie Gordon, with Mansell in third place, and that really has changed things around incredibly. It could well be that we've got Mansell leading this race now, the Miller Genuine Draft 200. It could be that Mansell's out in front. We'll have to wait and see once everything's settled down. Pit stops being made as the leaders take advantage of the stopping time. And you rejoin us here at Milwaukee for further coverage of the Miller Genuine Draft 200. It's been a fairly remarkable race up to now. We've just lost our leader, Paul Tracy, up against the wall. He got involved in traffic when he was lapping some of the slower cars. We still haven't seen exactly what happened, but the net result is that Paul Tracy has once again lost the lead in an oval race. The same happened at Phoenix, the same has now happened at Milwaukee. We've just seen Paul Tracy walking back into the pits looking somewhat perturbed, shall we say, and Tracy must be, well, thoroughly disappointed with that. A great chance for a win today, and that is a real shame for him. It looks as though everybody has now refueled, so everybody now should be able to make it back. And everybody should be able to make it to the flag on the amount of fuel that they've got now. So we wait for this yellow flag period to end. Still some clearing up operations going on. You can see the trucks down there on the back straight, just picking up the mess. And obviously the cars picking their way through that at the moment, having to take it very slowly. So this will be a run to the flag, of course. Oh, look at that, Paul Tracy's car. The little section over the front spring damper units has come off. That right front corner looking quite bent. Obviously the driver well protected by the safety cell that is made up of this very, very strong monocoque chassis. that's used on the Indy cars, a carbon fibre and aluminium honeycomb chassis, which is very, very strong indeed. New regulations this year, in fact, have made the front of the car even more capable of withstanding impact after all those horrible accidents at Indianapolis last year. But we can see the right front wheel is very much out of order there. The right side pod is obviously demolished. We saw a bit of bodywork. In fact, that's what gave us our first indication that one of the Marlboro Penske's had gone off, and Tracy then out of the race with a very bent motor car. So Penske's hopes now remain with the other car, that of Emerson Fittipaldi. Quick look down, we've completed nearly 150 laps, so that was after 150 laps. Scott Brayton down there, Roberto Guerrero, Jimmy Vasser. So what's going to be happening up the front of the field when the green flag comes out again? Mansell is right up there. Robbie Gordon made a rather bad stop for his fuel, so he has lost a little bit of ground. So we may well, there's Raoul Boesel leading them round. So it could well be that Boesel is leading now from Mansell, from Gordon, someone in there. It looks as though it's Boesel, Gordon and Mansell, because the lead car behind the pace car will be the car in first place. Of course, the laps are being ticked away, even though they're under yellow flags. The laps are being ticked away, and they're still taking race distance, conserving fuel nicely at this sort of speed, of course. But we really are going to be having some race to the flag, I think, with no other pit stops, no other scheduled pit stops, we reckon. So it should be a straight sprint to the flag from the green flag on this occasion. There was our pole sitter, Raoul Boesel, who really must fancy his chances now. He really was a disappointed man after the Indy 500. He really felt he'd had the win taken away from him by the officials with 2 stop-and-go penalties, and he really was quite bitter after the race. He finished in 4th position, but he was very, very bitter after the race. They discussed protesting the result with the USAC officials, but in the end, Dick Simon, the team owner, decided to let the result stand as it was, and so Boesel was given 4th place. But I think that really fired him up into a strong performance here at Milwaukee, and that pole-setting time that he did in qualifying, so well, far under the existing record, which was previously held by Bobby Rahal, who was on pole position here last year. Boesel shattered the lap record with a 21.719 second lap. When you consider that the next fastest, Fittipaldi, did a 22.352, so a full 0.6 of a second slower around 1 mile. That really was incredible performance from Boesel, and everybody else commented, all the other drivers commented, they just couldn't believe the sort of pace that Boesel could set. In fact, he managed that in just 1 lap as well. Now there we see the running order: Boesel and Mansell in second, Fittipaldi in third. That was after 150 laps. So that was the running order, and that should be the order when they set off again after the green flag comes out. Gordon obviously losing quite a lot of time in that pit stop, because got Rahal up into 4th now, Gordon then down to 5th, and then Little Al coming up well into 6th position. So that's a very strong performance from Alonso Jr., and as I mentioned earlier, a man never to really discount on this Milwaukee Mile. He has performed very well here. He had his first ever oval win here, Alonso Jr., back in 1990. That was his first ever win on an oval circuit. It took him a while to get there. Now it looks to me as though we could be getting a green flag situation here. Rahal has lost out a lot there. In fact, Brayton going past now. Look at this. Boesel has taken the lead on the green flag. We have a race underway again, and it's Boesel out in front with Robbie Gordon making up ground once again. So Gordon looks as though he may be moving up into 2nd place already. Mansell down to 3rd. Where's Fittipaldi gone? We can't see Fittipaldi at the moment as he goes past Mike Groff. Mike Groff running in the Rahal Hogan, but Mansell now into 2nd place. And Mansell now moving up, Boesel leading. There is Gordon, and in fact Gordon has been lapped. So that was the situation. Gordon was lapped by Mansell. That's why Gordon is not in 2nd place. Mansell is in second place, and he is chasing after our leader, Raoul Boesel. Boesel opened up a very big lead there initially, and trying to extend that lead, but Mansell is in second place, and he's got a good chance of closing the gap between himself and Raoul Boesel before the end of this race. This is a sprint all the way to the flag. We've got around 45 laps to go, which won't take very long. There we have him, second place, lapping quickly, 140.57. Of course, they lost quite a lot of ground just there, but it's certainly Boesel leading from Nigel Mansell in second place at the moment. So here we see from Nigel Mansell's car in second place, chasing after Raoul Boesel. We can't currently see the gap. We think that Mansell may have to make another stop. It is possible. We thought that they could run all the way through, but perhaps Mansell is going to have to make a splash and dash stop. That means he might have to come in to get just another few litres of fuel on board to allow him to finish the race. Well, we shall have to see on that one. Mansell, though, currently in second place, trying to close down our leader, Raoul Boesel. Third place is Emerson Fittipaldi. Fourth place still, we think, is Bobby Rahal, but he lost out a little bit on the restart on the green flag. So Rahal in fourth, Gordon a lap down in fifth, Alonso Jr. also a lap down in sixth position. But I think Rahal may have dropped down a little bit down the order. Brayton moving up, he certainly made a very good start. Now, who's this? Mike Groff. Looks as though Mike Groff might be in trouble. Could this cause another yellow flag? It could well be. Mike Groff certainly taking it very, very slowly there as he comes round and tries to get back into the pit lane. Mike Groff into his fourth year of IndyCar racing, but he's never had a full season with the top team. He's got his best chance now this year with the Rahal Hogan team. Here is his team leader, in fact, Bobby Rahal, in the Lola for the first time, going past Mike Groff, and he will obviously would have registered that, but he's too busy with his own race. He's now in fourth position, so he did manage to hold on to fourth after that green flag mix-up. There is Scott Brayton in the pits. Brayton had a stop-and-go penalty, in fact, and that was for overtaking Rahal under the yellow flag. They were still under the yellow flag when Brayton went past. They were on the back stretch, and so Brayton was given a stop-and-go penalty. He's been in, he's had to stop, he's now back out onto the circuit, but Rahal is in fourth. Now then, Gordon is trying to unlap himself here. Robbie Gordon is currently in fifth place, and the yellow has come out. So the yellow flag, that is why Gordon has dropped back. The yellow flag has come out, and Boesel now still in the lead, but of course the yellow flag will close it all up. Fittipaldi in third behind Mansell, then Rahal, Gordon and Unser both a lap down. So Gordon was about to unlap himself there against Raoul Boesel and try and move up the order. He was chasing after Bobby Rahal next, but Rahal a little way ahead. Now, of course, this will close things up again. This could give Mansell the opportunity to get back to Boesel. It depends on how many cars are between the two cars. Of course, they all line up behind the pace car, and Boesel will be the first car behind the pace car, and then in between Boesel, who will be leading, and Mansell in second place, will be several of the back marker, the cars that will be a lap or two or three laps down. So it depends on how many cars are between Boesel and Mansell as to whether Mansell might be able to jump Boesel at the restart. Is he going to be able to serve some of the medicine that got served to him at Indianapolis last weekend when he got jumped on the restart by Fittipaldi and by Leyendijk? Now there we can see, in fact, there's only two cars between them. Boesel, we can see the lead car there, two cars in between, Mansell in second place. So he's got two of the slower cars to get past before he can challenge Boesel for the lead, but that's certainly a possibility. Mansell, we can hear, just changing gear. Of course, once they're up and running, they basically stay in one gear on this 1 mile oval. They quite often run two top gears so that they can run a different sixth gear in traffic to the one they might use on their own, but they have a normal set of gears, obviously, for accelerating out of the pit lane. and for dealing with these slow laps. So they have to decide very carefully what gear they're going to be in when the green flag comes out. Emerson Fittipaldi at the Indy 500 last weekend timed it beautifully, changing down to second gear just on the last restart, really slowed things down as they came out of the final turn, dropped it down to second gear, and then blasted away when he got straight, and that gave him the jump. Now here we go, we're getting underway again, and Bazell is hard on the power as he comes through turn 3, out of turn 4. He comes to take the green flag, and the green flag is waved. It's Bazell who leads, with Mansell in second place. Now then, this is the question, can Mansell manage to close up? There's 37 laps to go, just 37 miles of this Milwaukee circuit, and can Bazell hold on, or is Mansell going to close that gap down and take his first ever oval race win? Here is Mansell, on board with Mansell. Of course, Mansell touched the wall at Indianapolis last weekend in his attempts to close the gap between himself and Leyendijk and Fittipaldi. And Mansell, we can be sure, we know that he tries hard, and Mansell will be giving it his everything now to try and close that gap down. Just over 35 laps to complete. The laps go very quickly, obviously, here. 23, 24 second laps these guys are doing. It doesn't take long for them to go around. It's a fight to the flag now, with no more stops to be made. That last yellow will, of course, give them a little bit more leeway on the fuel. They'll be able to keep the boost turned up. They'll be able to run hard all the way to the checkered flag. And it really is now a question of who's got the car better set up and who's got the bravery and the determination to take the win. Mansell then, here he is in second place, down the start-finish straight into turn 1. You can hear him coming off the throttle briefly. Then gradually, as he feeds the throttle on, back on the power hard as he comes along the back stretch. Back off into turn 3, you come off the power into quite tight there, running quite tight and quite low over the yellow line, which leads into the pit lane, and then back out again. So 3 seconds between the leader and second place man Nigel Mansell, and Fittipaldi only 2 seconds behind in third position. Rahal a little bit further down in fourth. Gordon, we know, nearly a lap down in fifth. Unser also a lap down in sixth place, but it's Bazell here who leads. He still has a bit of an advantage over Nigel Mansell, but what is the gap? The gap around about 3 to 4 seconds. He is about to catch some traffic now, Raoul Bazell, and that is going to slow him down. So Mansell still has a great opportunity to win this one. Raoul Bazell in the Duracell sponsored the Dick Simon run car. Dick Simon said that he runs this team virtually on the budget that Nigel Mansell gets paid. They run the whole team on the same budget that Nigel Mansell gets paid in his IndyCar contract, they reckon. And Simon was delighted with that pole position. Now here we go, Bazell beginning to get into that slower traffic now, and Robbie Gordon is that moving up with him, trying to unlap himself once again. Gordon really is flying now. There goes Robbie Gordon unlapping himself, and Gordon is absolutely flying as we look back, and it looks to me as though Mansell is closing up. There is Mansell right behind Raoul Bazell. Now this could be a battle for the lead. It could be a change for the lead, because Mansell is closing right up to Raoul Bazell. The gap you can see visibly very, very slight now between the yellow car there of Raoul Bazell, the white and black car of Nigel Mansell. In second place, Bazell having to fight his way through the slower traffic. Mansell also tied up with a bit of traffic. That's Olivier Gruillard, the Frenchman in his debut race in IndyCar racing, and he is trying to get out of the way of Nigel Mansell. Here we are on board once again with the Formula One world champion, the reigning world champion, trying to close that gap up to the Brazilian Raoul Bazell, the Brazilian former sports car champion. Been racing Indy cars for a good few years now, Raoul Bazell. He knows the score, but he's never ever won an IndyCar race. Mansell has, of course. He won at Surfers Paradise, his first ever IndyCar race on a road course. And so Mansell really is charging down. Look at him working at the wheel there. You can see the bumps there in turns 3 and 4, and that really does affect the balance of the car. The car leaps over the bumps. A major part of setting these cars up correctly for the Milwaukee circuit is to try and let it comply with the bumps without knocking it offline, and it is certainly a job for the race engineers there. is Mario Andretti being lapped by Raul Boesel. The problems that Andretti had, dropping him right down the order, of course, but he is still running. And there, Andretti just also being lapped by his teammate, Nigel Mansell. Now then, are we going to be seeing a new team taking the honours here at Milwaukee? Raul Boesel, the Dick Simon Racing, Lola Cosworth, being chased down by Nigel Mansell in an identical type of car, also running the Lola 93 with the Cosworth engine. And this really is a battle to the flag. Boesel and Mansell, these two absolutely on it now, trying to outfox one another, still trying to fight their way through the traffic. They've both found a bit of clear air at the moment, so that of course allows them to lap more cleanly. They can lap more quickly. There's air over the wings, is not disturbed by the other cars, and they can run much more quickly through the turns. Boesel still maintaining that lead. Mansell knows there's still around about 25 laps, just over 25 laps remaining in this race. He's still got some time to close the gap to the leader, and that's what he's trying to do at the moment. Raul Boesel, who raced in Britain way back in 1980 when he won the Formula 4 Championship in 1980. He also raced in the British Formula 3 Championship in 1981, so a familiar name to many motorsport fans in Britain. He moved on to Formula 1, and Boesel's Formula 1 career with the Ram, March and Ligier teams never really taking off. He never really was in the right car at the right time, and we see that so often happen in Grand Prix racing. Boesel's best ever result in Formula 1 was a 7th place at Long Beach, and made his IndyCar debut back in 1985 when he was the fastest rookie at the Indianapolis 500. His first full IndyCar season was in 1986, but he then left IndyCars and moved on to sports cars, winning the World Championship with Jaguar, and also raced for Jaguar in the American Sports Car Series in 1991. Well, he's an experienced racer, Raul Boesel, 35 years old. Oh, and Mansell, that's interesting. It's actually changing down there, using that other gear, the other sort of top gear that they use when they get into traffic. We could see when he was in clear air a minute ago that he wasn't changing down, but Mansell now changing down, using more revs. That means he's using more speed. He's got more speed in that lower gear. It would use more fuel as well, of course, but they shouldn't be worrying too much about fuel at this stage. They've had several yellow flag periods, and maybe he has now decided, maybe he's had the message from the pit crew, and Mansell takes the lead. Mansell takes the lead of the Milwaukee Mile, and Mansell leads in his second ever oval race. It's Nigel Mansell out in front ahead of Raul Boesel, and is Mansell going to take the win in only his second ever oval IndyCar race? Nigel Mansell it is who leads. This race has been won previously by a Briton. That was Jim Clark way back in 1963 when Jimmy Clark came here and won in the Lotus Ford. Is Mansell going to repeat that British win and win here at Milwaukee? It's Nigel Mansell who leads in the latter stages of the Miller Genuine Draft 200, and he's drawing away now from Raul Boesel. He's definitely getting away from the Brazilian in second place. Fittipaldi in third place, but we haven't seen much of him, so he's a little bit further down the order. Still in fourth is Bobby Rahal, but it's Mansell who leads. Boesel there is still in second place, staying with Mansell reasonably well, but it certainly seems as though Mansell has got this race in the palm of his hand at the moment. And this really is an incredible story, with Nigel Mansell leading his second ever IndyCar race here at Milwaukee. It is a different type of challenge to Indianapolis, that's for sure. Indianapolis gives the driver a little bit more rest between the corners, and although the speeds are that much higher at Indianapolis, it gives them the chance to just get their bearings, think about what's going on. Here at Milwaukee, there's no break, there's no time to rest. The corners lead one into the other, and it really is a very demanding track at Milwaukee. So we really are into the latter stages now. Less than 20 laps remaining until the end, with Mansell out in front He looks as though he's outpacing Raoul Boesel, who's in second place, looking to repeat the second place finish he had at Detroit last year for Raoul Boesel, and it still will be a great result. But this is Nigel Mansell putting on another superb performance. Fittipaldi still in third, but dropping away a little bit. Rahal still in fourth, Gordon in fifth, Alonso Jr. in sixth, Scott Brayton in seventh, Guerrero in eighth, and the rest of the field there with Teo Fabi just down in 10th place as Mansell goes past him, making it look easy. And Mansell really is looking in dominant form once again. There's Boesel in second place. It's possible, apparently, that Boesel may have to go into the pits to get another splash of fuel. It's possible he's been using the turbocharger boost a little too much and revving a bit high. So it's possible he may have to go in for a splash and dash for Boesel. But we think that Mansell should be okay all the way to the end. So, will Mansell manage to hold on? Fittipaldi is in third. It still is a question of whether they're going to be able to run all the way to the flag. Good view this from Nigel Mansell's car. We're just looking back again at the overtaking manoeuvre that Mansell made on Raoul Boesel. Boesel was a little bit tied up in traffic past Jimmy Vassar's car. But there, Mansell just sneaks through on the inside. It was a superb manoeuvre. Boesel, here we have another shot of it in fact. Boesel backing off out of the throttle to get round turn 3 and 4, and really Mansell just hardly backed off at all. He just took the line, and that really was a superb passing manoeuvre as he gets past some of the slower traffic. Olivier Grouillard again, that is, I think, on the outside of him as they come along the back stretch. We really are getting down to the latter stages now of this race. It's still Mansell out in front. He's looking good for victory. Coming past Mario Andretti once again. Andretti being lapped once again. Really hasn't been a good afternoon for Mario Andretti. It's a shame. And trying to just perhaps get some points. He's Mario Andretti certainly not having a very good afternoon's motor racing here. There's Raoul Boesel still in second place, and Grouillard there just in front. Grouillard in the Eurosport Marlboro entered car, the Lola. They've set up their own team out there, and this is his first race, so a good first race. Oh, and we've got somebody off, that looks like Robbie Gordon. Robbie Gordon's off, and we're going to get another yellow flag. That's going to bunch them all up, and that certainly makes life very interesting once again. Robbie Gordon, the man who was going so quickly, he is in the wall. And so we are going to have a yellow flag period. We're going to be in a very interesting situation on the restart. It's Mansell leading from Boesel in second, Fittipaldi in third place with just a few laps to go. Make sure you don't go away. Stay with us here on Eurosport. And you join us at a very exciting time here as Boesel is trying to get past Mansell on the restart. They've just had the green flag. Boesel managed to close up, but I wonder if he might not get a stop-and-go penalty or some sort of penalty, because he actually went past. There's only 2 laps to go. We have 2 laps remaining now till the checkered flag. So here comes Mansell, 2 laps to go. Mansell leading this Milwaukee Mile. Nigel Mansell, Raoul Boesel in second place. This is the battle to the checkered flag. Is Nigel Mansell going to win his first ever oval race? We're actually now onto the final lap. They go so quickly here. It's Mansell who's going to take the win surely now. Nigel Mansell is coming out of turn 4 to take his first ever win on an oval track, and it's Nigel Mansell who takes the checkered flag and wins the Miller Genuine Draft 200 at Milwaukee. A superb result for the British driver, and Paul Newman in the pits looking absolutely delighted. Nigel Mansell wins his second ever oval race ahead of Raul Boesel, Emerson Fittipaldi, Bobby Rahal in fourth, Alonso Jr. in fifth place, Scott Brayton in sixth, Guerrero in seventh place, and what a result for Nigel Mansell. Unbelievable, and he has certainly shown that he is unafraid of the oval circuits. No matter that he had an accident at Phoenix that put the car through the wall, he's as good as anybody when it comes to racing on an oval, and he proved it here this afternoon. A superb drive from Nigel Mansell, and that really does extend his lead in the IndyCar Championship. Mansell now on 70 points, and Andretti, of course, not adding much to his score. Second place, Boesel will score another 16 points, and that will take him up to 50. So Mansell now with a 20 or 19 point advantage. So a great advantage in the championship. Fittipaldi and Boesel both on 51 points, in fact. 51 points for both Fittipaldi and Boesel. But Nigel Mansell had a superb win there, and it really was a great drive all the way through the afternoon. It was a shame we lost Paul Tracy, but Tracy it was who was leading early on in the race and then went into the wall when he was lapping the traffic. So Tracy threw it away again. We never quite saw how it happened, but there is Nigel Mansell, and he must be delighted with that victory. The team congratulating him on the event, and certainly Mansell will be acclaimed a hero in the United States now after that sort of result. So Mansell, the winner of the Miller Genuine Draft 200 in only his second ever oval race. A superb win for Mansell, and he leads the championship as they go to Detroit just next week.